So this was a bipartisan, Democrats, Republicans saying, we got to do more for our veterans. Like, look, 60% unemployment is way too high. Now it's down about 2-3%. But partially it's because we've had 800,000 troops right now, or young Americans, using the GI Bill today in college and universities across America.
Yeah, I have plenty of friends of mine that have actually used it to go get their pilot's.
Yeah, well, they owe me a beer. Welcome to Warrior Money, the show dedicated to supporting our brother and sister veterans. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze.
Let's get into it with our bottom line up front. We're going to talk to you about the GI Bill and how critical it is for veterans. It's truly a financial launching pad. GI Bill.
Yeah.
Absolutely a springboard to get you to stay away from debt, student loans, get you to be able to make some money when you're going to school and use that money to invest.
Yeah.
Why is it so good?
There's so many different ways to answer that question. And I know you and I have both served for different reasons. So let's broaden this out a bit. Like the GI Bill is one of the tools that you can use to reduce your obligations for school, right? Like you and I, community college guys, state school guys, one of us was state school guy, another one went to on an ROTC scholarship, and then you went to law school and I went to law school, right? Our job of getting out of school is to try to keep our expenses as low as possible. So we're kind of like a startup when we're in school, right? Our job is to keep expenses low, so that we get in earning years, we're not just paying down debt, we're actually making an income to create wealth. The GI Bill is one of the tools that we're able to use to reduce the cost of education so that over time, what we actually make as salary, we're paying to create wealth as opposed to paying back debt. That's really the juxtaposition that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of veterans and active service members that have head trash. That basically, like, I'll never forget.
Super head trash.
I'm in Baghdad, Iraq. I'm on a gun nest on top of our compound at this Fort operating base. I go to private first class, Juan Arvelo, and his name was RV. And I said, RV, you should think about going to West Point. He said, sir, I can't go to West Point. Like, I don't even know who my father was. I'd never been to college. I'm like, yeah, but they had this prep school, and I walked through. I eventually went to West Point, eventually became a lawyer, married another West Point classmate. She's a doctor. So they're like basically the Huxtables down in Texas, right? Yeah. But there is a head trash that you and I went through. We both went to community college. We're both first generation college. When the GI Bill was first established by President Roosevelt after World War II, a lot of folks, and even in academia, said, hey, we're not college material. The dean, and I have to read this, the dean one of the deans said this in New York Times back in 1948, the GIs are hogging the honor rolls and dean's list, right? And why is that important? Because if you are a private first class or you are just getting out without a college degree and you want to leverage the GI Bill, you will do well. You are college material. You've done much harder things in life.
Yeah, you don't have to not know who your. I think Juan didn't know who his dad was. You don't. It doesn't have to be that hard to struggle through, right? Like, I didn't even know West Point existed when I was 15, 16, and I certainly didn't think that I could go to West Point. So like, that wasn't where I was when I was 15, 16. I just wanted to play baseball. I wanted to hang out with my girlfriend who became my wife. Like, that's what I wanted to do. So I didn't even know about it. But now that I know what I know now, and you look back at it, you're like, no wonder GIs are hogging the honor roll and like you experience life for 3 or 4 years, entering after high school. You come back to school.
Yep.
You're in your early 20s. The financial pressure trying to figure it out kind of goes away a little bit, and you can dedicate 4 or 5 years to actually learning something in college. So like, I think it's the same as true in 1948 as it is in 2025. It's like, there's nothing wrong with taking a little bit of time to understand what you want, using the military as a springboard to come back in. Like, in fact, one of the top 3 reasons I joined the Pennsylvania National Guard back in 2010 was because they gave me $50,000 back for my student loan repayment. Like that was the benefit that I needed when I was in law school, looking at $65,000 in student loan debt, being like, how am I going to pay that back? That was one of the primary reasons why I personally went and did it. So.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. Like,
no.
You use the benefit for what it's for, right?
Right. You earned it.
People get weird about that too. Like, they're like, hey, like, why? I didn't earn that. Like, we heard Admiral McCraven even say, like, it's kind of weird for me to say that, but like, no, like, you earned it. You should use it.
Yeah. And for those veterans out there or service members, because listen, I think both you and I, we have chips on our shoulder a little bit in a healthy way. It wasn't just back in 1948 about the GIs hogging honor rolls and a dean's list. Look at the stats now. The post-9/11 veterans' average GPA is 3.34 versus 2.94. So they are more likely to major in STEM and in business, and practical majors that they will get jobs.
Yeah, I think we're dealing with a whole lot of changes too. By the way, because we're not just talking about the VR, but we're talking about vocational rehabilitation programs. Like, there's a lot of different programs, and the point is, you got to get educated, right? That's the fundamental philosophy, right? I don't care if you're going to be a welder, if you're going to be an electrician. I don't care if you're going to go get a college degree. Usefulness is what people matter about. And the next stat that you actually wrote was they're going to make $84,000 a year versus $67,000 a year for vets versus non-vets, right?
Right.
You can bias that a little bit for age, but the reality is when you understand what's useful in the real world, you understand where you find value at. And you can do whatever you want as a hobby. Like, you can go love on art and love on everything else you want to. And I love art, but like, it doesn't have to be your occupation. Right. Your occupation has to be what the world finds valuable, or at least you have to try and find out what that is. And that, I think, is what we're really trying to talk about. It's like, veterans know, because of maybe their experience, maybe the work that they did in the world, what is actually valuable. And they didn't just like transition into the next thing.
Yeah. And what I try to tell folks when I mentor them is live a purpose-driven life, but also live a value-driven life, right? What are your values? What do you want to do? You don't necessarily need to go to college. But the stats will show, especially if you have a great trade that, you could go make money, start a small business out of. But also, if you do go to college and you just showed the numbers of, post-9/11 veterans, their average salary versus non-veterans. But the average college graduate will actually make $1 million a year over the career. Now, that's the average, right? But there's also a lot of electricians that start their own small business and get other electricians to come underneath them and have an apprenticeship.
Yeah, I mean, we got a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Mark Lynch, who's the head of the business manager for the electricians in our area, right? The IBW 98. And I saw, I think it was on Instagram yesterday or 2 days ago, like, somebody from the pipe fitters or the steam fitters is making $155 per hour all in, right? I'm saying that because we featured somebody before a transition into an apprenticeship program from the military, drove all the way from Alaska to join the Philadelphia Union under Mark Lynch because they just had an opportunity to do it. So like, I remember that very distinctly. He was so proud of himself. He left. What was it? Fort
Richardson, I think.
Richardson on like one day, and he drove 4 straight days to get to where he needed to be to show up to work on time. Like there is so many opportunities if we just take advantage of both the benefits we have and the accesses that have already been created for us. And so many times, to your point on brain trash, we don't take advantage of the things that are in front of us. We think that we're not qualified for it. We don't even know that these things exist, but they're all out there. And it's just a matter of being curious and trying to find it.
Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about, frankly, our podcast, We're Money. We're trying to let people know what we didn't know. We're trying to let people know what they can leverage to get a leg up in a competitive environment.
Yeah, I didn't know that my GI Bill passes down to my kids.
Right.
I had no idea. You found that out with your daughter,
Yeah.
I think. Your daughter, right? You can pass down your benefits to your kids. That's just... later in life takes a whole bunch of financial burden off your shoulders as well.
Yeah. And so it's not just about, listen, sometimes debt could be good. We both try and shy away from it. We're both fans of Dave Ramsey.
I really don't like debt.
Yeah, well, I'm saying
I really don't
sometimes
like
it could be good. But,
yeah.
So I don't want to,
okay.
But when you can leverage the GI Bill, so you get full tuition, so you get a housing allowance, so you get a book stipend, right? And so let's just walk through, Yellow Ribbon, schools basically pay full tuition. Let's walk through real quick the housing allowance. If you're in Philadelphia, whether you're going, my student at Wharton Business School, or you're going to Drexel or community college, you could get about $2,500 a month in a housing allowance. If you're going to Stanford, because you didn't get into Wharton, you're going to get $5,000 a month for a housing, housing.
They're part of Yellow Room.
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah.
And then obviously the book stipend, right? So you don't have to pay out of books. Those are the type of things. So you leverage, so you don't have to go into debt. You stay away from debt, and then when you get paid for doing it, you could even invest during that time.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. When you were in Congress, you were instrumental in changing the GI Bill. Was I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
How did you change it? What did you modify?
Yeah, listen, it's all about solving pains, right? Whether you're in business or whether you're in government, or that's what it should be for most folks. It's not. I came back from Iraq. I was independent, but I decided to run for the U.S. Congress in suburban Philadelphia. It's now the Pennsylvania 1st District. I won. a pain point right then was we had 16% unemployment. So of our brothers and veterans from Iraq, Afghanistan, 16% of them were unemployed. So what do? And it's the same rate it was back in World War II. So I said, hey, let's double down on the GI Bill, and we call it the post-9/11 GI Bill. My roommate happened to be Tim Walz, who's now the governor of Minnesota. We did it, we passed it, and George Bush was the president. So this was a bipartisan, Democrats, Republicans saying, we got to do more for our veterans. Like, look, 60% unemployment is way too high. Now it's down about 2-3%. But partially it's because we've had 800,000 troops right now, or young Americans, using the GI Bill today in college and universities across America.
Yeah, I have plenty of friends of mine that have actually used it to go get their pilot's
Yeah, well,
license.
they owe me a beer.
They owe me a beer.
Yeah.
They also use it for their pilot licenses where you don't be drinking and flying, but I hear you. And they also use it in the VR&E way. And like we had Wyatt and Kyle on here before talking about how they use it for
Syrups
leverage.
guys are brilliant. I love them.
And how you use it for, you haven't used it yet, but you've got the access to it.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, right. So, and then, it's just a great way to go.
Yeah, and VR&E, for those who folks don't know about it, because it's not widely known, like, if say it's basically vocational rehabilitation, right? So you're an infantry officer, like, I was 82nd Airborne Division, right? I break my hip. Well, I was going to be a cop. Well, then I can't go be a cop, right? So then you have to get counseling. You have to be 20% disabled. 2, you have to go to a local counselor in the VA and say, hey, I want to do this voc rehab, this VR&E. And then potentially you can go to places like Wharton or college, right? And, go get your MBA, go get your college degree through that program. So you don't even need to use your GI Bill benefits. So then you can save them for your spouse, for your kids. That's an amazing opportunity that people could leverage.
Yeah, totally. And you can do it on the VA's website, by the way. So that's what we're talking about. Like I've had to research my own benefits. I reached out to University of Tennessee, Carnegie Mellon, wherever I need to, and you just go on the website and you say, hey, what am I eligible for?
Yeah.
And they'll tell me, hey, Secretary Murphy got you, or Congressman Murphy got you this additional benefits back in 2006 or whatever it was. Congratulations. Now, it won't say the Murphy part, but it'll say, like, here are the benefits you're allowed for. Right. Have you considered these programs? And here's how much money it's going to be a month. It's really not that difficult to use, and it's actually super easy to use on the website.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like an old guy here, but it wasn't when we first did this. It wasn't as technologically. It wasn't as quick. It wasn't within 24 hours. Now it's like, as you said, it's online. It's so much easier. There's a Congressman, Jason Crow, Army Ranger.
Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado. He was just on a podcast called Raging Moderates with Jessie Tarlow. I worked with her at Fox News. And he talked about, he was in law school. He was enlisted, Army Ranger, Regiment. He goes to, I think it was 3 deployments, Iraq, Afghanistan. And then comes back home, gets a college degree, goes to law school. And they weren't paying him. They weren't paying, it was delay, it was lagging. He's like, man, I might have to drop out, right? And he tells a funny story. I got to tell this because there is a civilian military divide in our country, and it's not purposeful. They respect us, but he says, his first week in law school, they were like, all right, well, say your name, what you did and what you like. And he goes, I'm Jason Crow. I was an Army Ranger. I like pizza, right? Basically, right? And so one of his classmates were like, I didn't know they had rangers, National Park Rangers in the Army. And he goes, no. I wasn't a ranger, a park ranger.
Hilarious.
I was
That's awesome.
But people don't know. They don't understand.
That's awesome. That's so funny. I love that.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about real quick. When we talk about, leveraging. We've talked in the past about using the VA home loan to leverage that. We talk about, betting on yourself using the GI Bill. Dan, you have a college degree, you started community college, you have a college degree, you have a law degree, but you always go back and go get certification every 2-3 years. What's the latest certification that you got?
What you do, though,
why
too.
is that?
You do the same thing. You may not get the formal certificate, but you and I are living, we're all living, especially, and this is, I'm telling you, this is why I'm so passionate about this. We're living in a time where you've got to go to school or you've got to be educated every couple of years. With the artificial intelligence wave, we haven't even gotten into pregame yet of where this is going to go. Knowledge is going to be so easy to access. We thought it was easy to access with Google. Just wait until you see where this goes. It's unbelievable. So the reality is you've got to learn along the entire lifespan of your career. And I know that's cliche. I know people say that, but we've got to spend as much money up front reducing the cost of education because we know we've got to educate people until they're 55, 60 years old. And it might be really scary to do that. So why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I used the student loan repayment program to pay back $50,000 of my law school debt. every other year, every third year, I go to NMIT, Wharton. I'm looking at Stanford. I use Udemy. I use some of the Coursera. Like, I use these things just to learn on a topic that I didn't know about. And I don't think that it's being overly ambitious. I just think it's like, yo, like, these things are coming and I don't understand it. And I'm not going to go spend $150,000 right now to go learn more. So I'm going to go spend $5,000 to $8,000. I'm going to learn the skills that I need to have to accelerate where I need to go. And the reality is, like, you can go get an MBA, but you've got to build on that over time too. Like, and trust me, with artificial intelligence, this gap between the capital level and the worker level is going to become like this. They're going to get rid of all that level of middle jobs, right? Because you can do that with machines now. So that means you have to learn how to work with customers. You have to learn how to sell. You have to learn how to prioritize capitalization. You've got to be in that stack, and you got to be able to make human decisions. And that's why we have to educate ourselves over time. Like, you do a great job of doing it. I feel like I have to do it. So it's just one of those things we have to navigate.
Yeah. It's like keeping up with the Joneses. And part of that is
with your brain.
Yeah. But part of that is, too, it's like you got to bet on yourself. You look at any great leader, whether it's Warren Buffett or Mark Cuban, they will all say, pick up a book, read. You got to force yourself to go and, break away from the monotony of your day-to-day and make that time, whether it's early in the morning when you first wake up, late at night, but you got to read, you got to expand your horizons.
Yeah, one of my favorite articles is called Solitude and Leadership, and I can't pronounce the guy's last name, but it's William Dershowitz, I think is how you say it. It was a speech to West Point at the graduating class back in like 2010. And what it really was like, hey, like, if you're in leadership or you're in the world, right, you can be out in front of people all the time. That's really what leadership looks like. But what it really means is, are you quiet enough with your thoughts to come back to actually figure out what you're trying to do? And let's connect this back to the people that are going to listen to this, the veterans, the folks that we care about. I promise you that if you're thinking about your debt, and if you're thinking about how you're going to make your student loan payments when you're 40 years old, you're not going to create the space for yourself to be able to figure out what you're going to need to go do. So you've got to try to figure out, however possible, to yourself as educated as possible, whatever way that is, without incurring as much debt, so you can actually focus on growing your wealth, growing your knowledge base, and getting better for the future.
Yeah. All right, let's pause there. We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
We'll be right back, talk about the GI Bill, leveraging that GI Bill, and other opportunities out there. More on Worry Money when we return. All right, welcome back to Worry Money. Dan Kunze and I are talking about the GI Bill and how awesome it is. You asked me a personal question, why did I come out to the post-9/11 GI Bill, et cetera. The return on investment, for every taxpayer dollar, we get back $7. The ROI is amazing. The stats are unbelievable. When you look at 3 Supreme Court justices, 3 U.S. presidents, 12 U.S. senators, 14 Nobel Peace Prize winners, all got there via the GI Bill. And it's not just that. It talked about hundreds of thousands of doctors and lawyers and executives. The ROI is unbelievable.
The community leaders, the people that you look to in your community, you don't know why you look to them. You kind of do. I bet you they've got some level of service that's been baked into them, whether it was military service or public service. They've got some level of grounding that they've actually been outside of their neighborhoods, and I think that's super, super important for us to think about as we think about ROI. And like you told me that it was you said it was a bipartisan bill. You said George W. Bush was like, he signed it. You worked with your roommate, Governor Walz, now, and not a lot gets through in bipartisan way right now. There's really hard things to do, but I have to believe that regardless of the parties, if it's a good investment, it's a good return on investment, and it helps a community of people that will be forever leaders, I can't imagine that that's always going to be said no to.
Yeah. And I think that's what people are hungry for. They just want people who are going to put the ball forward, whether it's taking care of our troops, especially when they're facing 16% unemployment like they were, or whether it's, making sure our economy's growing in the right way and fiscally responsible.
Or picking up our trash.
Yeah.
Or making sure that our lights are on.
Right.
Or making sure that any of these things. And I think, again, we've got to really come back down to why do people serve in the first place? And once you've served, how do you then extend those benefits to a life of service? And that's the story, right? Like the return on investment, as you quoted, the different presidents, as you've quoted, 1948, the instantiation of this, as you've quoted, like this is an investment in a community of people that we want to serve for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and don't let the head trash, like, well, I'm not college material. You didn't have to be a great student. You weren't disciplined. You weren't this American warrior when you were in high school. You've been honed, molded to just be this leader character. You can do great things. if you leverage it. If you can say, I believe in myself, and people like Dan and Patrick, I listen to them on Where Your Money, they believe in me. Because listen, that's what the numbers speak for themselves. If you're a veteran, you go to college and use the GI Bill, you will get almost a half a grade higher than
and it's not even doing great stuff. It's like, I'm going to be a good person that shows up in my community. I'm going to go to church on Sundays. I'm going to go buy a house. I'm going to fill that house with kids, and I'm going to create a life, and I'm going to give back to the community that I live in, right? That's a good, noble life. You don't have to do great. You don't have to be a Nobel Peace Prize winner. You don't have to be in Congress. You just got to be a person that shows up every day, and that's really what it is. Like I don't care. We've talked about this a lot. I don't care if you're a truck driver. I don't care if you're a cybersecurity professional. I don't care if you're an electrician. But like, if you have the ability to use your service to find places to be able to do that, where you pursue your purpose and you do it in a financially responsible way, you're gonna be okay. Like that's the narrative. That's the story. Like the story is, can you serve in some capacity beyond yourself? And can you do it in a way that makes sense financially? And that's just what we're trying to figure out how to do here.
Yeah. And I think part of that is leveraging it so you don't have to go into debt. Don't go into student loans if you use the GI Bill. So then you can take that GI Bill, you can take that housing allowance, you can take that book stipend, and you get paid by doing it still, and then you can go and invest that money. So that you can make your money work for you
and then
instead of working for money.
All of the things that your buddies in your platoon are talking about, like you make all the money in the civilian world, you do all the things you want to go do, that actually creates a reality where when you get out of service, you take some of that money, you start to invest it. You just basically do it. You just go to an index fund. You take the money that you would otherwise spend on your students, your school stuff. You come in and like, man, I'm going to put my first $100 in the S&P 500 index. And you're like, oh, this is really interesting. I'm going to do the S&P 500 index. Then all of a sudden you learn, what is the S&P 500 index? I have no idea. And then you look at the portfolio holdings. You see, oh, Microsoft. It's one of the big companies in there. Oh, Google. Like these companies are in the S&P 500. And what does that mean? Well, that means that the S&P 500 is the 500 largest, best companies in America, right? So we're investing in those things. And then we learn about the companies within that. And then all of a sudden it creates this thing where you actually learn about what you're investing in. And I think that gives us the ability to create personal finance levers. And again, it all starts because we didn't spend all of our money. We used the benefits we had in service to be able to continue our life forward. I really don't know how I would be doing it right now. Like with how expensive it is every day, with my mortgage, with how expensive my kids are, I don't know how I would do it if I had $100,000, $120,000 in student loan. I don't know how I would personally do it. And the only reason I don't is because I used my military service for it.
And I think part of that, when we tell these young Americans that are either on active service or veterans or family members, is that go invest in S&P 500, go put that money, but be stoic about it. Put in there, fire and forget, be king of battle, be artillery, fire and forget. Because listen, if you're there trying to day trade, chances are you're not going to make money.
Yeah, and it's all,
and
but
you
it's
do
also,
it in the fun on the margins, but not.
It's also something you get to learn though, and like I had a conversation with the other day. If you don't have money to start with, just why I'm saying this to you, the GI Bill, the VA home loan. I bought 2 houses with a VA home loan. I've used student loan repayment programs. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars that I didn't have to use out of my pocket that I could repurpose to go invest. If I didn't have those things, again, I wouldn't be in the same position I am in now.
Yeah. What advice do you have for folks out there thinking about either using the obviously VA home loan or using the GI Bill, and why it should be something they can strongly consider as leverage?
You should just use it. There's no advice. Just figure out what your benefit is and go use it. As quickly as you can. It's really easy to determine your benefits online. Just go determine your benefits, figure out what it is, figure out something you care about, and then go kind of pursue that purpose that way.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Don't overthink that one.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, use it. You don't necessarily have to go get a college degree. Just get the skills you need.
Use it.
To go get the skills you need to go live that purpose-driven, that values-based life that you want to lead and raise a family and be a great American.
100%.
All right. So that wraps up Word of Money for this week. So listen wherever your podcast, follow us. If you have any questions or comments, follow us online at podcast@yahooinc.com. Hope to see you next time. We're out.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.